It's a Friday night in late October, the kind of Friday that smells like a paycheck hitting a bank account that was already spoken for. Mark is sitting in the drive-thru of a high-end steakhouse, not eating inside. The waiter tips would have been too visible on the credit card statement his wife checks on Sunday mornings. He's alone in a $48,000 SUV he's been financing for 31 months. He just closed a deal at work, a good one. The kind that makes you feel, just for a moment, like the version of yourself you always planned to become. So he orders the ribeye, the expensive bourbon, the appetizer he doesn't need. He pulls out his phone, takes a photo of the food before it even arrives, posts it to his Instagram story with 3 words: treat yourself, you earned it. 14 minutes away, in a neighborhood that looks almost identical, David Miller is finishing dinner. His family and wife, 2 kids, a dog that costs almost nothing, just ate homemade pizza at a table they bought secondhand 7 years ago and refinished themselves on a Saturday afternoon. After dinner, David opens a brokerage account on his laptop, not to check how the market did today. He doesn't do that. He opens it to look at a number that has been growing, silently, methodically, like a vine wrapping around a wall. He doesn't post about it. He doesn't tell anyone. He just closes the laptop, turns on a movie, and falls asleep without an alarm set. Mark will wake up Monday with a slightly elevated credit card balance and a vague feeling that he deserves more. David will wake up Monday with slightly more freedom than he had on Sunday. This video is about the 3 words that separate them and why the phrase "treat yourself" might be the single most expensive sentence the consumer economy ever taught you to say. Welcome to Stealth Invests. I'm the Insider. And today we are going to surgically dismantle one of the most emotionally sophisticated traps ever engineered by modern consumer culture. We are not talking about impulse buys. We are not talking about lattes. This is about a psychological operating system that was installed in you, probably before you had your first job, that turns every moment of stress, achievement, or boredom into a financial transaction. A system so elegant, so perfectly disguised as self-care, that most people will defend it to their graves while never understanding why those graves were purchased on a payment plan. If you've ever finished a hard week and felt entitled to spend money you hadn't planned to spend, this is for you. If you've ever used the phrase "I work hard, I deserve this" as financial reasoning, this is absolutely for you. Because the discomfort you're feeling right now, that low-grade financial anxiety that lives just behind your eyes on a Sunday night, that's not a personal failure. That is a perfectly engineered outcome. And today we reverse engineer who built it, and why, and how people like David Miller quietly walked away from the whole machine. Let's begin. Part 1. The engineering of the release valve. To understand why treat yourself is so financially lethal, you need to understand what it was designed to replace. For most of human history, the emotional cycle of a working person looked like this: effort, discomfort, delayed reward. You worked, you endured, you saved, and eventually, you experienced something meaningful. The delay was not just practical, it was psychological. It built identity. It built resilience. It built a relationship between sacrifice and reward that kept people financially grounded, even in lean times. Then, somewhere around the mid-20th century, consumer advertisers discovered something remarkable. The delay was the enemy of consumption. If people waited until they truly had surplus to spend, they wouldn't spend enough. The machine needed more throughput. So they invented something far more powerful than a product. They invented a feeling, a culturally sanctioned emotional permission slip. The idea that stress itself is a currency, that suffering entitles you to spend, that the antidote to a hard week is a financial transaction. You deserve a break today. McDonald's, 1971. One of the most studied taglines in the history of advertising. Notice what it does. It doesn't sell food, it sells permission. It says, your hardship is real and the cure is right here, and it costs very little and you've earned it. The brilliance of that framing cannot be overstated, because once you accept that effort entitles you to immediate reward, you have become effectively a self-replenishing revenue stream for whoever sells the reward. That architecture, effort equals permission to spend, is now so deeply embedded in Western consumer identity that most people have never questioned it for a single conscious moment. It shows up in the workplace, in social media language, in the wellness industry, in the alcohol industry, in fashion, in dining, in travel. The entire ecosystem of modern discretionary spending is built on a single emotional premise. You suffered, therefore you may consume. And here is where Mark enters the frame in the worst possible way. Mark and Sarah combined bring home approximately $158,000 a year. They live in a suburb that was designed at the architectural level to make spending feel like belonging. The houses look the same. The landscaping competes silently. The cars in the driveways are the quietest form of social scorekeeping ever devised. Mark is a regional sales manager. Sarah is in healthcare administration. They are, by every statistical measure, high earners. And they have, at this exact moment in their lives, a net worth that is functionally negative. Here is how Treat Yourself built that outcome. One perfectly reasonable decision at a time. Mark had a brutal Q3. His numbers were down, his manager was cold, and he'd been traveling every other week for 2 months. By October, he was frayed. He felt, in his own words, like he'd been giving everything and getting nothing back. So he bought a Peloton. $2,200 on a credit card with a 19.9% APR. He rode it 4 times. He didn't buy it because he wanted to exercise. He bought it because it was a trophy, a physical object that said, "I've been through something, and I came out on the other side, and this machine is proof." The Peloton sits in the corner of the guest bedroom now, wearing a jacket. Sarah had a similar moment in March, a difficult performance review. A co-worker who got the promotion she'd applied for. She booked a long weekend at a resort, not the modest one an hour away, but the one with the spa and the curated brunch menu and the kind of pool that photographs beautifully. 3 nights, $1,100 on the card. It was, she said, exactly what she needed. It lasted 72 hours. The credit card bill lasted 6 months. This is the mechanism, not one catastrophic decision, a sequence of entirely understandable ones. Each defensible in isolation, each emotionally logical in its moment, each completely disconnected from any governing financial philosophy. Because Mark and Sarah do not have a financial philosophy. They have a financial mood. And the mood is always the same. We work hard, we deserve comfort, we'll figure out the rest later. The consumer economy doesn't just tolerate this approach, it was designed around it. Credit card companies earn approximately $130 billion per year in interest and fees from American consumers alone. The industry does not want you to be bad with money in an obvious way. It wants you to be sophisticated enough to feel in control, while systematically never actually gaining any. The reward for a hard month is a purchase. The purchase creates a balance. The balance creates a minimum payment. The minimum payment creates a new form of stress. The new stress creates a new entitlement to reward. The machine feeds itself forever. Part 2, the mathematics of the treat. Let's do something uncomfortable now. Let's convert Mark's emotional decisions into a language that doesn't lie. Time, not money, time. Because money is abstract enough that most people can rationalize it. But time, specifically years of your working life, is visceral in a way that credit card statements simply are not. Mark and his family spend conservatively $400 per month on what they internally classify as treat yourself expenditures. That is not the mortgage, not groceries, not utilities. That is the discretionary release valve, the dinners out after hard weeks, the spontaneous Amazon orders at 11 p.m., the upgraded hotel room because we're already spending the money anyway, the clothing purchases that felt celebratory in the store and invisible 6 weeks later. $400 a month. Many households, if they're honest, spend significantly more. But let's use 400. It's defensible. At 19.9% APR, a completely standard credit card rate, not predatory by industry standards, $400 per month, if never paid off but merely serviced, generates approximately $76 per month in interest. Annually, that's $912 that produced exactly nothing. No asset, no memory, no compounding return, pure extraction, but that's the small number. Here's the one that changes how you see your life. If Mark, instead of spending that $400 per month on emotional reward purchases, invested it consistently in a diversified index fund averaging 7% annually, here is what happens. In 10 years, that $400 a month becomes approximately $69,000. In 20 years, $196,000. In 30 years, which is how far away retirement is for someone in their 30s, that specific $400 monthly habit, redirected, becomes $522,000. $500,000 generated by the money that was going toward Pelotons and resort weekends and dinners ordered on the drive home because the day was long. But the real number isn't the money. The real number is the years. At a safe withdrawal rate of 4%, $522,000 generates roughly $20,000 per year in passive income, indefinitely. That is a part-time income that exists without you. That is optionality. That is the freedom to leave a job you hate, the freedom to take the year off, the freedom to say no to clients who drain you, the freedom to be present at your children's school in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon without checking your phone for messages from a manager. Mark did not buy a Peloton. Mark purchased approximately 2 weeks of his future freedom and threw them in the corner of a guest bedroom. This is what the consumer economy never includes in the price tag. The price tag says $2,200. The real price tag, accounting for compound interest lost, opportunity cost, and the credit card APR on the balance he carried, is closer to $40,000 in future wealth. And this is one purchase. Mark makes versions of this decision 12 times per year. Durar Part 3, The Stealth Method Now, David Miller. David is not a monk. He is not a minimalist in the performative, Instagram aesthetic, linen capsule wardrobe sense. He doesn't judge Mark. He barely thinks about Mark. He's too busy being quietly, invisibly free. Here is what David did differently. And here are the 3 principles that the Stealth framework is built on. Not as a philosophy for impressing other people, but as a personal operating system for people who are no longer interested in funding the consumer machine with their lives. The first principle is this: separate identity from expenditure. David had to do one piece of genuine psychological work before any of the financial tactics made sense. He had to ask himself with ruthless honesty, why am I buying this? Not the surface answer, the real one. When he felt the impulse to upgrade his car, a perfectly functional 2016 Honda Accord with 212,000 miles on it, he sat with the impulse for a week, and he realized he didn't want a new car. He wanted to feel successful at a dinner party. He wanted the parking lot of his office to communicate something about him that he didn't fully believe about himself yet. He wanted approval from people whose financial situations he knew nothing about. Once he saw that clearly, the impulse didn't feel like self-care anymore. It felt like paying for advertising, for a brand. That was him, with money he didn't have, to impress people he didn't particularly respect. The Stealth household has one rule about purchases: the purpose must be the use, not the signal. Functional, not performative. The moment a purchase is primarily about what it communicates to others, it is, by definition, a marketing expense. And David Miller is not in the business of marketing himself. The second principle: design the release valve intentionally so it can't be hijacked. This is where most financial advice fails people. It tells them to stop treating themselves, to be disciplined, to feel nothing. That advice is useless because it fights against human psychology instead of working with it. David's household doesn't eliminate reward spending. They systematize it. Every month, there is a fixed, pre-allocated amount, in their case, $250, that exists for pure enjoyment with zero guilt and zero accounting. A dinner out, a bottle of wine, a concert, whatever. It's already factored in, already planned. It cannot expand because it is capped. And because it's pre-approved, there is no emotional negotiation in the moment. The question is never, do I deserve this? The question is this in the budget this month? The entitlement narrative is dead. There is no psychological exploit to hook into. This is the financial equivalent of designing your environment to support good decisions rather than relying on willpower in moments of weakness. You cannot trust yourself to make sound financial decisions when you are stressed, tired, and emotionally depleted. No one can. So David doesn't try. He makes the decision when he is calm, rational, and in full possession of his own judgment at the beginning of the month, and he simply executes it when the moment comes. The third principle, make the cost of delay visible. Every month, David opens his investment account and runs a simple calculation. He looks at his balance, applies the rule of 72, dividing 72 by his average rate of return to see how many years it takes his money to double. Then he looks at any discretionary purchase he's considering and converts it to months of delay. A $2,000 vacation at his current savings rate is approximately 6 weeks of delayed doubling. Is the vacation worth 6 weeks of compounding? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. The point is not to answer the question automatically. The point is to ask it, because the consumer economy has spent billions of dollars ensuring that you never ask it, ensuring that the decision feels emotionally complete without any reference to what it costs you in the dimension of time. David doesn't deprive himself. He simply refuses to make financial decisions in an informational vacuum. Closing. The choice no one will tell you about here is where we land. The phrase treat yourself is not evil. The impulse it represents, the human need for relief, for celebration, for comfort, is not a character flaw. You are not broken for feeling it. You were, however, systematically taught to fulfill that impulse in the most expensive possible way, with the most possible frequency, using money you hadn't finished earning yet, to generate feelings that lasted hours while the debts lasted years. That is not self-care. That is wealth extraction dressed in the language of wellness. Mark will spend approximately $480,000 on unplanned emotional purchases between now and his retirement age. He will never see that number on a statement. It will never appear as a line item. It will simply arrive as the feeling, sometime in his late 60s, that there is not enough, that something went wrong, that somehow, despite earning well above the national median for 3 decades, he arrived at the end of his working years with less financial peace than people who earned far less. He will blame the economy. He will blame his employer. He will not blame the Peloton. David will retire early, or he will choose not to, because he actually enjoys his work by then. Because the absence of financial desperation transforms a job from a cage into a craft. He will not have a dramatic story. No lottery win, no inheritance, no crypto play that hit. Just 30 years of refusing to let his emotions be the primary input in his financial decisions. Just the quiet, compounding rebellion of a man who decided that freedom was a better trophy than anything he could photograph. You've been watching this long enough to know which path you're actually on. Not the one you intend to be on. Not the one you tell yourself about on New Year's Eve. The one you're actually on, measured by the gap between what you earn and what you keep. The treat is real. The freedom it costs you is also real. The only variable is whether you ever do the math. If this made you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is the only thing the consumer economy cannot monetize. If you want more of this kind of analysis, the kind they'd rather you never see, subscribe to Stealth Invests. Not because I asked nicely, because the next video will be worse. For them, the insider out.